Welcome to Flying for Flavor.
Welcome.
We are in a snowstorm, but we came out anyways. I'm assuming that a lot of you, especially in Canada, specifically on Ontario, Eastern Ontario, starting out into the East Coast, and then of course Northern States are all experiencing some big blasts of winter this week. So you're probably going to have like a lot of snow and sleet and ice. So there's nothing more enticing than to get through a stormy day than a cheese board and wine. So Stacy's back from Mexico and she came back to this, which is funny.
It's so great. Back to reality.
Back to reality. And,
like Eminem.
And Cynthia had other things going on today. So because we were talking about cooking competitions, we thought it'd be perfect to invite our friend Chris Mask to join us for this episode, because I have a lot of questions about it. I've been following you online and all the different things you've been in, and we have a kind of a unique thing in Sudbury. I mean, it's very rare for a town to have, I know personally of 3 people. I don't know if there's more than that.
Well, technically 4, because you got to remember that it was Marita and her sister
Marita.
Right.
And yes, that's right.
We both made top 50 in season 1 of MasterChef.
Okay.
I was top 50 in season 2, and Grace Lang was season 4, I believe.
Okay, and that's just on one show. And then Matt Beausoleil was had gone into MasterChef Canada, and then he was on the Mayor de la Chef in Quebec. That he did really well on that show in Quebec. And then Alex Lebel was on Chopped Junior Canada.
Yep.
Here in Sudbury as well.
I was the last cut before TV for Chopped Canada, actually, when they did the Firefighters edition.
Oh, that's cool. So anyways, there's a lot of so we have a lot of competitive genes in the city, I guess, which is kind of cool. So I've always been kind of following and watching it, and I know that every once in a while you're telling me I'm going to another one. So I thought you can kind of chime in on a lot of these things, questions that we may have, especially if there's anybody who's listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube who's always had that itch to go and join something like they see on TV, as an example, and what it takes to make it to that level, right?
Well, it's kind of funny because a lot of the things that I do, it's not just the TV stuff, right? Because I've branched off and I started a competitive barbecue team, and then from there I kind of worked my way into the world of food sport, which is what got me to the World Food Championships last year in Alabama, and it's going to get me back to Dallas in October. I got a little bit of redemption to do. But it's the world of reality TV cooking versus actual physical cooking competitions. They're 2 different worlds with so many completely different variables to them. You know, one is very personality driven, and then your culinary is almost like secondary. Like, you still need to be able to cook to a certain degree.
Correct.
But, you know, there's a lot of opportunity to be safe and kind of be saved in those situations, right?
Oh, okay. So
But
if you're really cute or really annoying,
if you have a good story and you make for good TV, because you got to remember these things when they do reality TV shows like that, it's about story. You know, when you do something like a cooking competition, be it a backyard barbecue competition or the World Food Championships, it's not story, it's what you put on a plate, right? But there's still, different variables with every one of them that goes along with it.
That's so true, because I remember watching some of them, and I don't watch a lot, but I don't. But the thing is that they have that little story about why they want to be there and why they need the money at the end of it and where it's going to go. And some really do have a very, you feel sad and you want to go, oh, I hope they win. I hope they win because they need that.
I'm thinking that's the point.
And I guess that's what you mean by story.
Oh yeah, everybody has a story, right?
Right.
Like, you have a background, and I mean, you got to look at it as this. If you're going into any kind of cooking competition, be it a reality competition or doing these food sport things, you got to be doing it for the right reasons. You have to want to be, competitive, because you need to be competitive if you're going to these. Otherwise, you're just throwing money away for food sport.
Okay.
And you have to be able to cook. But you also have to be able to adapt, and the ability to adapt, whether it's in the real life, food sport world or the TV culinary world, it's adaptation that's going to either pull you through a series, or it's going to, lead to you also being sent packing. Now, you can screw things up, and that's exactly what I did. I left my sauce off the plate by about that far, and that's what sent me home. But that's on me. And it's an incredible platform in terms of getting your name out there and helping to establish you and give you a little bit of credibility. And in terms of a launching pad, Master Chef Canada was fantastic for me.
you, yeah.
Like it gave me the confidence to be able to start doing little catering jobs and to
Wonderful.
start that barbecue team, Broken Antler Barbecue, and to get on with Eastlink and do that silly little show on chip stands.
I like your
Chip
silly
Wagon.
little show.
We're coming back for season 4.
Yay! Woo!
Yeah.
It's called Off the Wagon, by the way.
Off the Chip Wagon.
Off the
What
chip
was your
wagon.
barbecue team called?
Broken Antler Barbecue.
Broken Antler Barbecue.
Yeah.
All right. Keep an eye out for
Registered
that.
with Canadian Barbecue Society, and this year I'm going to be registering with KCBS. We went down to Oinktoberfest.
Oh.
That's the one thing about these barbecue competitions. They all have great names. Like Praise the Lard was in Murfreesboro, which is fantastic. And Oinktoberfest was in Clarence. So here we are. This was our first big competition. And the guy, my buddy Joe, who normally cooks with me, he couldn't make it for this. So I brought 2 people with really no competitive cooking experience whatsoever, but we've been high school friends for, going back decades. And we had a great time. We figured we'd be middle of the pack.
Okay.
But I mean, we ended up with, I think, out of 13 or 14 meats, I think we ended up with like 8 or 9 top 20 finishes.
Fantastic.
We ended up with a 6th for steak, 10 for pork carnitas. We had 2 top 15 desserts.
Wow, you're making me hungry.
And,
You're not just
and
gonna
the
start
more you
eating.
talk to people, that's where you find out where little things kind of went wrong, right? So for us, we found out we threw away a lot of points with just our boxes, because barbecue boxes, this is a serious thing where people will punch you if you screw with their boxes.
Okay.
So now, after we got back from Clarence, because I mean the backyard barbecue stuff, it's throw stuff in a box and see what happens, right? But now you know that there's so much that goes into the presentation. I literally have spent hours watching YouTube videos on how to build a barbecue box, and I've bought plastic and styrofoam takeout container boxes and just practiced packing lettuce and parsley just to try and find something that works. So this year is going to be completely different, because now we're not going to lose those points.
Okay, so just when you're talking, so explain to me about the whole box thing.
I was
You're
just
gonna
gonna-
ask
that
was the
same thing. I'm
we
like-
don't, because
So
I don't know what a box is.
I don't either.
So when you are at a barbecue competition, every one of your meats, be it the ribs, the brisket, the steak, the chicken, whatever, gets turned in what's called a box. And they're blind boxes. You can't have any markings on them whatsoever. But generally you put some kind of layer down on the bottom so that your meat kind of stands out. And you give it something with a contrast so the colors pop. And you're not allowed to use anything like radicchio that's red. You want to stay with the green. So a lot
So
of
is
people.
this after your meat is cooked?
It's
You want to
after it
present
cooks.
it, so
This
this
is
is
how
what
you
you're
give it to the
creating.
judges.
Got it, okay.
So you're given these boxes, and then you put a bottom layer of whatever. So some people will use, romaine lettuce. Parsley is getting really popular, and there's another leafy lettuce that the name's eluding me right now.
Kale.
Some people are using kale too,
Yeah.
but it's all about having it packed and literally making it look like a golf green.
Wow, okay.
So there's people who will spend hours and have people on their team who are just dedicated to making a box. And then
Who
your meat
came
will
up
go
with
on top of that.
Sorry. It's to be one of those
It's-
stupid things.
Oh,
it
Cynthia's
is,
not
but
going to give us
it's-
the E thing, but I'm going to say,
What the hell?
you're being very kind, because I was going to say it worse than that. But I'm trying to think that, for me, the whole idea of the competition would be the food thing. The amount of time that's being spent on, yes, I understand presentation gets you points, but there seems to be one style of presentation that sounds like this is the way it must be done.
Well, you got to remember too that depending on which type of barbecue competition you're in, like for example, if you're doing whole hog, I mean, there's a whole potential where when we were down in Murfreesboro for Praise the Lard, if you got a call for top 10 hog, you literally set up a little restaurant area in your cook space. And there were people who had a chandelier hanging over this little wooden bar for it. The barbecue is really big in the States, and you need to present then your half a hog to the judges as they sit down, and very much like you see on reality TV, where you get to talk about your food and how you prepared it and all that, and they have questions, and then that eventually ties into your final score.
Okay.
Barbecue is big
Oh,
business
no, I am
down
not
in the
questioning
States.
that. I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
questioning the
box thing.
the box.
The box. It's
Because I'm thinking, if everyone else was doing the same box, I'd want to do something different than the box.
I'd be putting flowers in it, edible flowers.
well,
That'd be so pretty.
Right.
Well, again, now there's the different types. Like the
Right.
KCBS is very, very strict, and they want things done. But then there's other boxes that you can build for different styles of barbecue competitions, where you can get a little bit more elaborate with your decoration and all that. But the big thing is that they want to make sure that, number one, everybody is on an even keel when it comes to handing in their meat. So they don't want anybody who's going to mark a box. Like if you even have a streak of sauce on your box, they deduct points for that. If you have a little nail mark or a scratch, they'll deduct points for
I
that.
get it.
If your sauce touches the top of the box, like with your meat, they'll deduct points for that. So they want to make sure that there's nothing that distinguishes one box from the other. Everything is blind box tasting. And then the judges will get their little cards and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but
And I can relate in a sense that when I was in my confectionery arts diploma thing, we went to a competition in Toronto, and we had to have our cakes all done and everything. And if you see an indent on the fondant, or it looks like a little bit of your chances of winning are very nil, but it's sort of like that. And to make it to a magazine, which is a lot of goals for confectionery art people, is a wedding design that you want to make it. So it's the same thing, right? It's sort of in the sense. I mean, it's parallel.
And even at when I was in Alabama for the World Food Championships, one of the things for the little plates that you have to present, the mahi-mahi that I did in 3 ways, we were emailing back and forth, and I showed you the concept for my dish. One of them was a smoked mahi-mahi with maple and miso.
Yeah.
And then for my presentation, I had a kitchen torch, and I had put some burn marks on the wood.
Yes.
So then it also gave that smokiness off the wood. But that's considered marking of a plate, so I couldn't do that when I got to the actual kitchen. So I had to revamp my whole idea with that. I mean, I kept the concept, but I didn't have that as an option to give that smokiness, right?
sheesh.
That's a great idea, though.
But markings, are huge, because I mean, it's like cheating, right?
Yep.
So everybody has to be on an even keel. So they want their boxes to be in a uniform presentation and done a certain way, and everybody's got the same size and box. And even the World Food Championships, you had to present 6 plates, and I kid you not, your plates were only about maybe that big, like not much bigger than a very small tablet.
Okay.
And all 6 had to fit on a silver platter with no more than 3 inches of overhang. And we built up our platter with kale to keep everything even, but also broke off a piece of celery, of all stupid things, as a measuring stick for us, because the chefferees who go around the kitchen stadium
Chefferees, that's awesome.
actually have a measuring tape, and if you're over 3 inches of overhang, then that's a deduction and that's a violation of the rules. So that little piece of celery, as stupid as it was with me for 2 hours of cooking and plating, just to make sure that everything fit onto that platter.
You are a crazy man.
Amazing.
Help yourself to the cheese and stuff,
Yes.
and I'll do a quick little intro to the fromagerie before I get on to because I got questions based on your little intro.
Well, they've got mortadella, and they got some chorizo on
They got
here,
all kinds of stuff.
Capricola, some
Yeah,
Genoa
so what they
salami.
should call this the premier platter, I
Yeah.
think. So the reason that we're at the fromagerie today, it's downtown Sudbury. It's one of the little hot spots for hanging out. They have great lunches, but of course they're known for cheese, hence the La Fromagerie, right? They are also, of course, one of the participating businesses in our upcoming Flavor Fest here in Sudbury, March 1st to the 3rd. They're going to be launching their new Sunday brunch, which I'm very excited about. So they've been it was one of those things when I approached them about joining in the festival, they were already kind of considering launching a brunch service. And it was just good timing for them. They said they want to do something before the spring. So
I love Sunday brunches. I love it.
yeah, so you'll get to have a little sneak peek. So they're launching the Flavor Fest brunch on Sunday, March the 3rd. So you'll see the details in the show notes. We'll have the link, of course, as always, to the Flavor Fest page where you can make your plan to come to Sudbury, or if you're already here, kind of map out what you're going to do for the weekend. So I have a question, and then Stacy probably has questions after. Who are the people that join competitions? I guess because I'm curious as to, I know there's 2 different styles. You talked about reality TV, right? So I'm guessing I like the fact that you admitted that a lot of people who are going on those shows are some people that are either trying to create a career for themselves in some way, and so they're hoping that the exposure of being on one of those shows is going to help them get someplace. But then the people who necessarily joined the other competitions that you were talking about, those people are probably more just loving the competition and the challenges and the exhilaration of it. I'm just spitballing here, so
I think that the one thing that I can say about both, whether it's reality TV or food sport,
Yes.
as the term is that I'm using more and more to
Good.
describe
No,
it as I picked up on it.
Yep, I like it.
Number one, you got to have a passion for food. And down in Alabama,
Well, we got that.
I'm like, I was like, well, there we go.
my little chip stand show getting fatter every week in HD. Like, it happens.
Oh yeah, my sweaters get bigger every weekend.
Yeah, you have to have a love for food, and you have to have a love for it. And I mean, you can sit around at, if you have never done a barbecue competition, you need to try this just once in your life.
Okay, tell us about it.
Even if you have no desire, you have no expectations of winning,
Right.
just to go and do one of these competitions, it's a ton of fun. It's very social. If you want to come with me one summer,
Really?
like one date this summer,
I'm in.
I'll let you know when Joe, Ryan, and Brad and I are going to do something.
I'm in.
You two can come. We'll get you some apple pie moonshine, get you a
Yes.
comfy lawn chair, and go from there.
Speaking of competition, I want to take a few minutes just to give my thoughts on competition within the restaurant industry. I have traveled the world, I've visited and chatted with restaurant owners, bartenders, chefs, servers, dishwashers, delivery people, taxi drivers, other diners, just about everywhere all around the world. And I always hear stories about one place battling with another one, somebody trying to take another location first, somebody talking down about somebody else. And there always seems to be this suspicion of people not doing well with competition and handling that competition. And I think that with social media and with news, you're always hearing about those negative things. And sometimes rumors tend to get out of hand, and you always hear about one place kind of battling another, and it makes a good story. However, just from my personal experience, and I want to use our Flavor Fest Culinary Festival as an example. So the restaurant owners, general managers, chefs and bartenders that I've spoken with here in Sudbury have been absolutely gracious with their fellow industry professionals. If two of them wanted to host a brunch on the weekend, well, one said, well, I'll do one Saturday if they do one Sunday. And another place would said, what's so-and-so doing? We want to make sure we're not doing something that directly competes against them. There's another person, they all seem to know each other by first name. And it's not like we are a small town. I would say we're about 179,000 people in the population of Sudbury. And we have a lot of restaurants for the number of people that live here. So there are anything from small diners to large chains, locally owned steakhouses, and pasta places. Different ethnicities have opened their own spots. We are a city who loves to eat, which is one of the reasons we wanted to start this festival. And I like to brag that so far I have not heard one negative remark about another place. And it's been really heartwarming. So I just wanted to do a little bit of a shout out to not just the people in Sudbury, but all of you restaurant owners who understand that competition is not a bad thing. I might even write a little blog on it with some tips on how to deal with competition a little bit with ease and a little bit of grace, and it makes sure that it's a win-win for everybody. So not just the owners, but your customers as well. So speaking of industry, here's this week's Dining Do, presented by Legacy Service Academy for Personal and Professional Learning.
My name is Valerie and I'm one of the owners at the Fromo, and my dining do is when ordering wine, be sure to check out what we're offering and don't just assume that the server should be picking for you. There are several different selections and prices associated with the selections.
Okay, I can see how trends would make a difference in any of the style of competition, even if there's specific techniques that are trendy right now, and if you can demonstrate those techniques, even if you're doing a reality TV competition, the fact that you have knowledge of those things is going to help them kind of launch between products and shows and things like that after. So that makes a huge difference. So keeping up on food trends would be a big one, right?
Oh yeah, food trends are huge. Like the one thing that I learned when, again, we're not really talking about the reality TV, we're talking about food sports still. In Alabama, again, you don't have the pictures of it unless you want to cut it in here, if you can do that at some point
I can.
there, of the test dishes that I was doing. But what I learned down there is the opening rounds are judged by people who do what's called an eat course. So they're taking people off the street, and in my head, thinking it's World Food Championships, they're going to have people who know food and know their culinary chops and all that. Not for the opening rounds, and that's why at this year's World Food Championships, things like lobster mashed potatoes made it into the top 10 money round. That's a side to me, but that's
Isn't
that's
that
just me.
interesting?
They had a tomato soup that pulled a bacon grilled cheese sandwich into the top 10 of bacon, I believe. And you want to talk about comfort food? A frozen burger won the World Burger Championships this year. A frozen burger patty, I kid you not, and people were up in arms about that.
Because no one, if you're, yeah.
And I
But
guess it has
it's
to.
what's comfort food, right?
Yeah.
So for me, when I looked at this, and I figured it out when I was watching the awards on the first night. Like, I totally overshot this. I overthought my dishes, and that's why I went with technique and the different styles moving through a plate. And I brought dulse into the plate for that Canadian element, maple syrup because I wanted that little Canadian touch. I honestly should have wrapped it in bacon and deep fried it.
Because that would be more palatable to people that are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been noticing that though. I mean, I
lot
even
of
noticed that
deep-fried foods
it's not
lately.
even just deep fried foods. I'm finding that people are still going through this. I want comfort food style dishes and recipes. I watch what recipes people are sharing on Facebook, just with their friends.
Right.
And I tease one of my friends about how she has this, and if she's listening or watching, she'll know who she is. Because she has a tendency, I told her, does everything have to have a damn cream sauce? Right? And does everything have to have a cream sauce, bacon, something? It's always some cheesy double cheese thing, gravy sauce, right? It's always this way over the top of all of these comfort elements
And
in the
about
same
40,000 calories.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah,
You're
but
missing
those
the
are the
flavor of the
things,
actual
right?
thing.
But it says the word quick at the front, right? It's this quick 4 cheese
Quick and
chicken
easy.
stuff something or other, right?
Quick and easy.
Yeah, with a something sauce. And I'm like, wow. It seems like such a lot, but those are the things that keep getting shared. And so people are obviously either making it at home if they're going to take the time out of their busy day or busy work week to make themselves dinner at home. They're making comfort foods.
Yes.
So it's interesting that if you want to bring this back to the competition thing, that there's probably a lot of people out there who only ever make that stuff at home and are probably very good at it. But they think food competitions or television competitions, and they think, oh, I don't know how to do sous vide, and I don't know how to do this, and I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to use agar-agar, I don't know how to use all these things,
Right.
so there's no way they're going to let me go in the competition. But if comfort foods
Is their go-to.
is kind of like a starting point, that if you can kind of take those things and really learn to excel in them, you could have a really good shot at doing well at these things.
And like you were saying, the first round where people just pulled off the street, right? So if their comfort food is their go-to, it's almost like, do I aim my first dish knowing it's one of those? Where do I go?
Well, your first dish for the reality competitions, I mean, you're cooking that at home.
Right. Oh, really? Okay.
For me, I made meatballs in a hotel room at 4 in the morning.
Oh, Hannah.
Just so that I had something fresh. And I mean, if you're, from back when I met you with Cook For Me Sudbury, one of the things that really sunk me is that I sat there and I overanalyzed in my head, how am I going to make sure that these gnocchi, after this long period of waiting, for plating everything, don't just turn to mush. So I tweaked my gnocchi recipe, and then they were that was the thing, the texture was off. But while they held up in the sauce and they were hot for the presentation, I should have just served it cold.
They had to sit,
Yeah.
because it takes a little while to do all that stuff, to do those tapings,
Oh,
right?
it does. And that's the same thing. You got to remember that when you do something like MasterChef Canada, where you have to go in and you have to bring a dish in, you could be standing in line for, 8-9 hours before your plate even goes up.
Are you for real?
Oh, yeah.
Like for me,
Wow.
after season 2, I auditioned for season 3 and season 4 as well, and it got to the point that where I started to be able to pick up on little things and come up with little creative ways to keep things hot. Like the venison that I brought for my audition for season 3, I cooked it 3 different ways, like to 3 different done
Level, yeah.
wrapped it in foil, and put it into these heated stainless steel thermoses.
Oh my goodness.
So when it came time to plate, I opened all 3 thermoses, I opened all 3 pieces of venison, and then I cut to find the one that was medium rare, because I didn't want it to sit in that temperature and then get pushed over, and I didn't want it to be under, so I wanted that perfect. And that was just, for me, how to do it, right? Like that's, and
I used a lot of thermoses back in my catering days.
How ingenious.
oh, it works, right? But
Right.
you start thinking of these things. Like there was one
Right.
guy who brought in, I think it was a chili, where he had a little crock pot that normally plugs into a lighter in a car.
Yeah.
And he had it plugged into a battery boosting pack. So that was what was sitting in his backpack. But then there's other people who, another gentleman, he showed up with a cupcake on a plate, already pre-plated. And literally when you've got your,
It'd be
2-3
dry.
minutes to plate, whatever it is, his cooler went on the table. He opened up the top, he pulled the plate out, put the plate on the table, closed the cooler, put the cooler under the table, said, now what am I going to do for the next 2.5 minutes? Like, you got to remember, that's, you're bringing in a prepared food. And, God bless and good to these judges who come in, because you also have to remember, you don't know how people are preparing this stuff at home. You don't know what quality and standards they're preparing this to, right?
Yep.
Wow.
And even when it comes to bringing in these dishes for reality shows like that, think about it. You could easily go to a high-end restaurant, order a meal,
And bring it in.
bring it home, stick it in the fridge,
Oh, that's true.
put it in your own little
That's
container.
sneaky, Chris. I didn't even think of that.
I told you, I think of a lot of things, right?
Just make it rare
But-
so that by the time you get it there, it's medium rare.
Yeah, like you could do all sorts of things like that, right? Like there's all ways around that. It's when you get in the front of the judges then that they start looking for, your technique and your ability to make things and, how you handle pressure and stress in the kitchen and things like that. You know? But you can watch these reality shows and you'll start to kind of see how early on they'll focus on people and they'll cut people and they'll build stories. And so you can start to almost figure out a formula to kind of follow it through. Because again, they're looking for more of a brand ambassador.
Correct.
When you win these things, whether it's a Chopped, Cutthroat Kitchen, a Master Chef, whatever in the world, right?
Right.
Versus these backyard barbecue competitions, or these KCBS competitions or World Food Championships, where you win, you get a big pile of money, but you may become a brand ambassador for something. But you're going to go back to your restaurant if you're a professional chef. You're going to go back home to your day job. I'm a paramedic and a firefighter. I'm not a cook, but I love to cook and I love to play, and that's why doing these food sport things or TV. That's why
It's the other side of the
it's
brain.
fun. But
Everyone has a drive to be involved in competition. What would your drive? So we were talking about the why. Why?
I love
What's
to
your
cook.
why?
What's your why?
What's your why?
I love to cook. At the end of the day, it's a stress release for me. Working in EMS, you get a lot of pressures in your job. I find it a very relaxing way to just kind of, center yourself. My family always cooked growing up. So, my mom was in the kitchen, my dad was in the kitchen.
What was your favorite dish from your mom and dad?
Well,
Sorry.
that's
This is
okay.
I just like asking these questions.
It's funny because this is actually the anniversary of my father passing away. I was starting to get a German accent there. My Faja. The
Yeah.
anniversary of him passing away was
hear ya.
on the 10th, and his birthday is coming up on the 18th. And for whatever reason, all week last week, all I could think about was this breakfast dish that he used to make me involving white bread and sugar and milk. Hot milk.
Oh, I've had that. I'm from a German family. I totally know it.
That's the Polish, right?
Yes,
Because the
German
paczkis
Polish.
are out too, so
Yeah, I
I'm
know,
like,
it's
I'm
kinda
going to make some
I know,
paczkis
it's
this
kind of
weekend.
like, yeah.
So
they're good too, though.
that's just one of the silly little memories that I
Oh.
have from growing up. Anybody can turn on an element, put a pan on the stove and fry an egg. But if you know how to prepare an egg, it's not frying an egg, it's preparing an egg.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well,
But
it's still one of the
technique.
classic tests that chefs always give to students is always
cook
about
an egg?
eggs, right? Scrambled eggs or omelet test, and
Even hard boiled.
yes,
Yep.
You know how to do it properly and what level. 'Cause
Correct.
when I was in my course, it was like, okay, today we're being tested on soft boiled, medium, hard.
Yep.
And you had to do all three in different stages.
Yep.
Yep.
It was like you didn't get to go on.
And that's why when you see people who make Scotch eggs, right? It's really easy to make a Scotch egg where you have that hard boiled egg in the middle of it. But get the technique where you can cut it and you get that runny yolk
yep.
that gives you that sauce for it. That, to me,
art.
that's how a Scotch
I
egg.
haven't made one in a long time.
should be
I feel a
made.
challenge for this weekend. I'm excited about it.
And then take it to the next level and do it on a barbecue. See if you can time it like that.
Indirect heat. Can I use indirect or has to be direct?
You can use indirect heat, but you got to remember you got to get crispy bacon somehow.
On the Scotch egg?
I wrap mine in bacon.
Oh, okay. That's why I was like, wait a minute, is bacon in your Scotch egg?
Well-
Confused for a second.
You got your egg, you got your
And then you wrap yours in.
ground sausage, right?
Yep.
Your mix, and then you get your egg in the middle
Yep.
of that, and then I like to wrap it in bacon and then like baste it in barbecue sauce, so you get that little bit of extra fattiness. And
More fat.
if you've never heard of a Boston fatty, that's something which is game changing as well in the barbecue world.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
I was gonna say if Cynthia was here, this would all go sideways very.
Well, while it is legal in Canada now, thanks to Mr. Trudeau, this is a fantastic way to make a barbecue pork dish for everybody. Which good recipe.
Okay, so let's just have a little break so we can go
Just tell people you have glaucoma, you're fine.
compose ourselves. I just came back. I said, as you know, I was just in Quebec City, and on my way back, I stopped in Ottawa, chat with Matt Beausoleil about the couple of cooking competitions that he had before he decided to launch his own TV show, Taking a Bite. Okay, so I guess my first question is, what was the very first competition thing that you went in?
That I went into. Well, the first actual competition that I participated in was MasterChef Canada.
Okay.
So season one of MasterChef Canada.
You didn't want to like wet your feet on anything local to start off with.
Well, that might have been a good idea, right? The reality is that I started doing it on social media, right? So my wife, not a big foodie, and I was like, I'm plating all these plates. And you know, when I was going into post-secondary education, I was trying to decide between IT and food. So
Different sides of your brain.
different sides of my brain, two passion projects, two things that I really enjoy, and two things that I was pretty good at. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do IT, just good money. My goal was to build a family and have a good job, and I'm like, you know what, maybe the restaurant industry is not for me. I don't know, we'll see where it goes. So I chose IT, but the food passion was always there. I mean, even in high school, we filmed a little TV segment with TFO, and we cooked banana muffins, right? That was kind of like my first stint of TV, which was really cool. I haven't been able to find that clip. I'd love to see what it looked like now.
Oh yeah, we have to dig that
Yeah,
up.
I gotta try and find that.
No, it's going to show up. It's going to show up someday when you don't want it to.
Exactly. I don't know.
Okay, so when you said you decided to enter the contest, what were you expecting? Not what it ended up being, but what were you expecting it to be like?
To be completely honest, I had no idea what to expect. So
Okay.
when I found out, when Gordon followed me and actually told me that I should try out for MasterChef, it was like 3 days before the actual auditions. So I had not even looked into it. I had not done a video submission. I hadn't read anything. I literally went up to the grocery store and bought ingredients and tried to make a plate. And it was like 9:30, and I was at the grocery store buying ingredients to try and think, what could I make for this show? And then I started reading up on it, and basically the first round is that you have to show up with some ingredients, and you have to plate a dish in 3 minutes. The stipulations were pretty huge. Like, you couldn't bring any heat, you couldn't bring any fire, everything had to be served at room temperature and be able to be safely served for the entire day at room temperature.
But yes, hello, filming requirements.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, you must bring your own plates, you must bring your own utensils, you must bring your own napkins. So basically you have to bring your own kitchen, the food has to be safe for the entire day, and you have to be able to eat it and enjoy it at room temperature. So I mean, it's kind
So
of
the
tight.
flavors have to be pretty pronounced
Yeah.
then for it to be able to be not just to sit there, but when you first take something and you plate it,
Yeah.
and compared to how it is like 6 hours later,
Absolutely.
it's
Well,
not the same.
Like, that's why when I was trying to conceive the dish, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what? I shouldn't do. You know, I'm a big griller, and I like cooking fancy food and stuff. But I was like, you know what? I got to take a step back and do something that can be served room temperature that tastes great.
Yep.
That was my idea. And I mean, I saw people bring in steak that was cooked the night before, and you know, when a cold steak is served, it's not the same thing whatsoever. So, you know, I took a cool approach, and I did a vegetarian take on a tartare. So I did a roasted beet and avocado tartare, which was really big back then, because I mean, that was, oh God,
Hey, in
5,
some
6
places,
years ago.
in some places it still is.
Oh, it still is. But it
right.
started to really make it, you know, the whole vegan aspect of food and whatnot was really coming into play. So I'm like, it's perfect, because first of all, I can plate it, I can prepare it ahead of time, and it'll taste perfect at room temperature. So that was the whole goal. So, you know, I chose that dish where I was able to finalize all my ingredients, plate them with the ring mold, do a nice little presentation, and I had a fresh dish prepared in front of the judges, which I think was a really good idea. And it brought me through to the next stage, right?
Yep.
So,
Okay, so time frame. So I guess that would be my next question before we talk about where it ended up. So time frame. So when you talk about that next stage, how long of a time is it from between that first time that you're there plating your dish and then to the next time that you go back?
so actually, it's the same day.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I guess they figure if you're coming into town, you might as well keep you and use you for the entire
So
time.
basically, there's many steps through the process. The first step is that. So basically, they take 50 people in a room, and you have 3 minutes, and off you go, right? And there's crazy things that happen. That 3 minutes flies by like that. They count down the time, and it's really stressful. I saw somebody drop a knife and cut their leg. It's crazy. Crazy. People cut their fingers and all kinds of stuff. So they're in a big panic. I think partly that's one of the things they're looking for as well, because they're observing everything you're doing during your 3 minutes, how planned you are, how you're executing, your skill. They're watching everything. From the second you get there, they're watching what you're doing.
Of course.
They're watching how you're acting, they're watching how you're looking, they're watching everything. So it's
Who's
all
camera
important.
ready?
What's that?
Who's camera ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
And then last January, I actually filmed my own TV show here in Ottawa called
Yes.
Taking a Bite.
Which we'll have a link to in the show notes, by the way.
Perfect. So Taking a Bite Ottawa, you know, it sees me go into restaurants here in Ottawa. I feature about 21 different restaurants in 5 episodes. And then right before that, I also competed on a TV show in Montreal.
That's right.
Yeah.
Meilleur du chef?
Meilleur que le chef, so
Yeah.
better than the chef, which was very interesting. So that was one that I had auditioned for, got cast for. This one was actually filmed in one entire day. I say that because it felt like an entire year. It was one of the longest days of my life, for sure. So basically what happens in that TV show is that you have 4 home cooks and 1 professional chef. So the 4 home cooks in the first round of the competition will compete against the chef as a team. So that becomes very complicated. Trying to get 4 different home cooks
Who don't know each other.
who don't know each other, who have obviously been cast because they have personalities, to actually work together, conceive one plate, and try and beat the chef, right? So I mean, these cooking competitions are great. They push you, and I'll do them again. I'd do them anytime, right?
How did you know what my next question is going to be?
So I mean, yeah. The next question is, would I ever do that again? Absolutely. I love
Okay.
it, right? I think that in anything that I do in my life, I like to push myself. And when you push yourself is when you achieve great things, right? If you just sit back and don't try, you're never going to succeed.
Hi everybody, so my name is Alex Lebel. I competed on Chalk Canada Teen Tournament Season 3. There is a lot of questions that come along with this show, coming from everybody who watched it, people that don't know me, people that do know me. So I was 17 years old when I went on the teen tournament. That means it was 3 years ago. And people still to this day ask me questions. One of the main questions is what made me enter the competition. What made me enter the competition was my love and interest for the food industry. I absolutely love everything about that industry, that culture, everything. I love everything that food brings to a table and enhances pretty much every experience that you can possibly get. So there was an online application I saw, and I was like, okay, for sure, like maybe I'll enter it. I didn't really think I'd honestly get on it, so I just entered. They ask you questions about like what you do, what interests you, why you what would make you kind of special for this show. So I ended up just filling that all out. They said if they end up choosing you, they'll just continue to ask you questions. So it was months and months, honestly. Like I entered, I think it was like January, February. I didn't find out till April, May that I actually got onto the show. They just keep asking you questions, personal questions. I believe that like they truly kind of base their decision on the person as well as their experience. So if they love to cook and they kind of have like a story behind them, that's definitely what they kind of look at. So when I went on the show, finally I got the email. It was a couple months later. We went to Toronto. We did a bunch of filming. They come to Sudbury. They did a hometown filming, kind of like basing and getting like your life behind the scenes to base off the show. Then yeah, we went to Toronto, did a bunch of filming. It was honestly one of the best experiences I've ever done. I would never take it back in a million years. I do wish I would have known a little bit more and been more mentally prepared for the show, for the intensity and the actual competition, because for me, I was very, not naive, but in a way I knew that I was a good cook, but I also didn't perform well under pressure. So if I were to do the show again, I would definitely have to work on my ability to perform very, very well under pressure. Although I was a figure skater, I always was never the best when it came to competitions and stuff. It wasn't my time to shine. I was always better at just like practice and like times like that, as opposed to when actually competition time was. So if I were to do the show again, I would definitely work on that. I would just kind of like enhance my knowledge a little bit more about different foods, especially chop, you know what I mean? Like you never know what you're going to be getting in the basket, so it's important to know and make sure that you're aware of many, many different cuisines and different types of food that you can possibly have to execute. I don't believe there's any particular criteria that they expected from the show. I do think they truly look at people that are a little bit different, that are a little bit more, they have a little bit more to their personality as opposed to someone who just wants to get on the show just to say they're on Top Canada, you know what I mean? They do individually choose the person, and I think they choose someone who actually has passion. They don't just choose a random person who just wants to be on TV and wants the fame and the glory. They look for someone who actually loves food and the food industry. If I were to enter the competition again, I probably would want to do some sort of other competition. I would do like Iron Chef, something like that. Top Canada wasn't really my cup of tea, as opposed, like I could not prepare for it. There's no preparing for it. It's literally like, here's the basket of ingredients. Figure it out. Do it. You have 20 minutes. Go ahead. You don't know how to use any of the appliances. Have no idea how to do any of that. You just kind of have to go with the flow and wing it. So I'd probably do another competition, but it would have to be something different. The competition. I think what surprised me the most about the competition was just how secretive and everything is just so everything is about the camera, like everything. It's just different. It's a weird industry. Like I personally never done anything in the film industry or something like that. So I had no idea how intense and like the fact you have to go in like a secret room so you can't listen, like everything's soundproof, like that kind of thing kind of threw me off a little bit. Made me also very anxious and very nervous. So that was one thing. Another thing was how supportive everybody was that I was competing against. I honestly met such amazing people when I was there. I met not only the people that I was competing against, but the producers, the actual chefs, like the judges were absolutely amazing. They were so kind. Like Lynn Crawford literally pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you did amazing, sweetie. Like you just need time." And I'm like, that meant a lot to me. And I have so much respect for anybody who's possibly gone on that show and how much courage it takes to go on that show. I would never in a million years trade my experience and my opportunity for that, for anything else in the world. And like I said, I was 17 years old, very naive, very young. If I went back and did it now, a couple years later, maybe I would be a little bit more experienced and have a little bit more time to get prepared for it. So if I did do an adult competition, I would be able to probably succeed a little bit better. And I honestly think it's something that I can never take back again. So, yeah.
All of a sudden I got a pallet of like 20-pound bags of lump charcoal, which get delivered to my driveway, and it's like, where am I going to put this?
Perfect.
You know?
So obviously they're talking equipment.
Yeah.
As you had that bit of a break.
So I have a question. Okay, so I'm a baker and more of a pastry chef than a cooker.
So now when you say you're a baker, let me ask you this question as I turn the table on question asking.
Okie dokie.
Oh,
For
she's not
you?
used to getting interviewed. This should go well.
Oh, this is gonna go great.
So then for you, is it science or is it texture? Nona hands, as it's so eloquently described.
Very interesting, because if you don't have the science, you don't get the texture. And it's such a fine balance.
It can be.
It can be, depending, like let's even say you're doing red velvet cake. A lot of people just think it's a box thing, but it's not. It's just the chemical reaction between two things that get you the red. But I believe it's an art, and it is an art. It's very much of a science. If people are like, oh, I'm just going to wing it. You do that with certain recipes, it's okay, but other recipes, it's a disaster. And it's more of a science to get the texture, in my opinion. Though in the art and the beauty of it, you want that texture and you want that presentation. Like, when you were talking about the boxes, I was getting it, because I was like going, oh yeah, like, because I'm all about like sugar paste flowers, one leaf at a time, attaching it to the center part, and I'm like, oh yeah, you could put a nice violet on the corner of one of your boxes and you'd be perfect, right? Like, that's how I
get
was
disqualified
thinking.
and that wouldn't be good.
No, but I mean, I was thinking Hawaiian, right? Like doing Hawaiian banana leaves in the bottom, and I mean, I had it all visual in there. Might be an idea. Eucalyptus.
Eucalyptus?
Sorry,
My
eucalyptus.
koala?
Yeah, well, no, you never know. You could find something. Do lamb, eucalyptus, mint.
You can now have a new team member. She's just going to do your boxes.
That's fine. That's fine.
A lot of these
Apparently I need them, because my
she
YouTube
does-
videos can only help so much.
She does sugar arts, right? So
Yeah.
you can get creative with your,
Yeah.
which would be very cool. Because I had a question about. Okay, let's not necessarily. So the barbecue stuff that you're doing on the World Food Championships, those are fairly. They're not as broad ranging of things that people are bringing in or recipes. Aside from like the reality TV ones, like MasterChef as an example. When you go to say that you are going to, I'm going to go and do your dish at home, and then you submit it in to apply. Are you finding that it's more savory than sweet? Like, are there certain recipes or certain techniques that you find that are advancing easier than maybe other ones are? Just to give people a broad range of, well, here's kind of some certain recipes or certain techniques that it's good for you to have a base knowledge of before you get in.
Obviously, you need to be able to have a base knowledge of certain things, because I mean, if you watch back, and I mean, that was one of the big ways that I prepared myself for this whole thing.
That's a good tip.
Is to watch like the various cooking shows that you want to audition for, whatever happens to be, and you can start to kind of see a theme of certain ingredients and things that they put to you. Like every year, somebody is getting an egg test. Whether you do MasterChef Canada, MasterChef USA, UK, Australia, whatever, because eggs can be very difficult. Mm-hmm. And everybody, again, can fry an egg, but not everybody can prepare an egg, right? So the one thing that I've noticed just from watching the last few seasons is that more and more they're getting culturally diverse, right? So more and more ethnicities are bringing their home style dishes and types of cooking into it, and you're seeing more and more ethnic dishes that seem to be popping up.
I was noticing that. I'm just watching the last couple episodes of Top Chef this season, so.
Oh, Top Chef, yeah.
I've been watching that, and there's a lot of, like, everyone seems to know all these Asian style, not just ingredients,
Yep.
but techniques, or they had a certain recipe base or style that they were gravitating towards, and a lot of them forced themselves or went someplace in Asia to learn and spend time to learn either Chinese or Korean or Thai or something, so that they can have the best of both worlds. But almost
absolutely.
everybody is versed in something Asian,
Yep.
which is stunning.
Because fusion is big now, right? Everybody wants that little bit of fusion, and no matter which cooking style you are based in, you got to be able to adapt and be able to, bring in some of those other flavors. If you take a look at just here in Sudbury, for example, when we talk about ethnic flavors and that, you got to remember we started off with one Mexican place that rhymes with Paco smell without breaking any copyright. And
Oh, we talk
now,
about restaurant names here all the time. So
Yeah, it's totally open.
and now look, even just in the downtown core, you've got Rosie's, you've got Taco del Sol, you've got Mexicana that has been here for a dog's age.
Yep.
But then you've also got the fast food version of that, including Mucho Burrito, which just opened up, right?
Yeah, no.
So when it comes to like ethnic cooking, more and more people are looking at some of these fast food restaurants saying, oh well, I kind of like that. Well, what if I bring in something like chorizo? I'll make a chorizo.
That's yours.
I'll eat that later. Don't worry.
It's yours, man. Sorry.
We don't pull punches on etiquette in this show.
But all of a sudden, what if I added some fried chorizo to my scrambled eggs?
Yep.
Is that a Mexican dish? Well, not really, but you're making a fusion dish, right?
Right.
Yeah.
What if I added chorizo to my fettuccine? Well, is that a Mexican dish or an Italian dish? Well, it's kind of a fusion, right? So being able to get exposure to more food culture out there and more ethnicities and, cultural favorites, I think that's really what's helping, define, where the culinary world is heading towards right now, because it's no longer just, one niche little pigeonhole. Now you got to be able to play the whole crib board, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. That's just fairly summed it up. That's our show.
The crib board.
So, no, not the crib board, but it's the whole idea of
And now I'm gonna eat
exposing
my
yourself.
chorizo.
Yes, thank you. The whole idea of exposing yourself to new flavors, new techniques, new dishes, new recipes, traveling outside of your normal comfort zone, going to a restaurant that you've never been to before, trying a different ethnic cuisine that you may not have tried before.
Sushi. A lot of people haven't tried sushi because they're afraid of it.
Yeah, well, it's not even just sushi, but as a curry is an example. But
Thai.
there's even little things that, this is all
But-
for my Canadian folks out there. I don't know if all Tim Hortons has it, but I found it in Quebec City.
Right.
There was a spicy Thai soup.
I think that's in most Tim Hortons.
Yeah, see, and I
But-
don't go to Tim Hortons that often, but I thought, for all you people usually going in and having your ham and cheese on a bagel, now's the time for you to try the spicy Thai soup as opposed to the, nothing against the potato bacon soup. I hear my mother said it's great. But, if you want to develop a palate for these other things and kind of broaden your skills and techniques when it comes to learning new recipes and eventually go into these competitions, I think you need to be able to taste more food.
And I always find too is if you're uncertain about what you want to order and you're not especially at Tim Hortons, just say, can I just have a little tiny bit just to taste it before I order it? Chances are the person behind the counter is going to be like, let me just check with my manager. It's going to be okay.
After the 10th Timbit, they take offense to
Well,
it. But
absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
speaking of somebody who's already done that before.
It's okay to sample.
Yeah.
Ask for samples.
even when you say curry, though, you have to remember, when you say curry, the average person looks and says, well, it's Indian, right? There's Sri Lankan curry, there's Thai curry, there's Japanese curry.
Yep.
Just about every culture has a form of a curry
Correct.
out there. So don't pigeonhole yourself by saying, well, I hate this curry spice, I'm not going to eat that. It's so much more to that.
Yeah, well, curry is a bad example because curry essentially means spice blend. So, right? Again, that's why it varies from one place to the other. But I said I see so many people that they're asking at a restaurant what every single ingredient is because they don't recognize something, they don't want to try it, and that bothers me only because I feel like you don't know that you don't like it.
If you haven't tried it.
Think what you could be missing. And I understand that you don't want to spend money on food stuff. That's why I'm always even saying with wines, as an example, the same thing. Most restaurants, especially if it's a wine by the glass, they will give you a sample of it.
Absolutely.
So try
Or
something
beer.
new. Yeah, beer, same thing. Try something new. So when it comes to the food stuff for the competitions, then I think the whole idea is to I think you just need to have a
Open
base
mind.
knowledge of things, and not be pigeonholed. And I only make, this style of food.
Yep.
You need to be open because they're going to throw different things out at you, obviously. Okay, so here's my last question, unless you have another one. But
I have tons, but we don't have enough time.
we have to get home before the snow blocks us
Sorry.
in. But I guess my last question is, if somebody wanted to enter a competition of whatever size, how do they go about finding competitions?
Online, easiest way to do that.
Yep.
Canadian Barbecue Society, for barbecue competitions, already has a whole list of them. There's about 20 that are already listed for 2019, including one in Quebec coming up later this month.
Wow, see,
middle of
didn't even
winter.
know that. Yeah, so
You know?
I'll put the link to that website on our show notes.
They'll
You can
probably like
access
that. Steak is really turning a big thing right now. They had their first sanctioned steak competition down in, I think it was Kitchener-Waterloo last year, and they're already planning it again for this year. Reality TV shows, if you go to the Food Network site or you go to CTV's site, usually you can drop down and you'll see like things that are casting. You can try it in the States as well, if you want to try and get on Guys Grocery Games or
Oh yeah,
whatever.
Nailed it. Everyone keeps talking to me about that show. Cynthia was hoping she was going to be here today just so she could talk about Nailed It.
Really? I've never heard of it.
Because you got to remember, right? These that
People
are
try
there
to make
for
cakes and stuff, you'd hate it.
for amateurs, right? The amateur competitions,
Yeah.
they're there for a reason, right?
Yep.
Like Cochrane's got a meatball competition this weekend as part of their winter carnival. So
Fun.
if you can make a good meatball and you can get to Cochrane on Saturday, you might win yourself a $100 gift certificate.
That's awesome.
There you go.
That's free meat.
Do you know what? I'm going to actually get you a recipe to tag in. We're talking about cakes and nailed it. I grew up with, my grandmother was Irish, and she used to make what was called wacky cake.
Yes.
And it's very simple. Because of the recession, it was based on people who didn't have a lot of ingredients, eggs and all this other stuff that was rich and expensive. It's called wacky cake. We grew up on wacky cake, and honestly, I love it.
Is that the one with fruit cocktail?
No, not the one with fruit cocktail. It was just, it's like 3 ingredients. It's like, I can't remember exactly it. It's the actual flour, cocoa, and something else.
Isn't it like condensed milk
Vodka?
or
Yeah,
something
it's
like
something.
that?
Whiskey?
You can throw that in though if you want. Nowadays, you can
That's-
throw almost
But I
anything.
think,
You
I
can.
think
It's
one of my
like-
I can throw that
grandmothers
in my
used to
belly
make-
too and just
Raspberry
I won't care about the cake by the end of
raspberry
it.
chocolate cheesecake. The only raspberry in it is the raspberry vodka that goes in my raspberry chocolate.
So the other competition we have coming up in Sudbury, of course, is a Flavor Fest, Lot 88 here in Sudbury, where we were taping 2 weeks ago. They have their oyster shucking competition
Yes.
happening that weekend. So if you happen to be here, and there's no cost to enter, they're only taking 10 people, and the prize is going to be a date night for 2, including hotel accommodations, a dinner out, as well as Sudbury Theatre Center
I
tickets.
think I might go in it.
No, you can't go in it because you're one of the
Sorry, I
organizers.
just want to learn how to.
No,
You
I
can
can,
tell.
I can get you to teach how to do that.
Okay.
I can get,
would-
so Chef Cindy will show you how to do the oyster.
I would love to know how to do it.
Okay.
And then you can tell your friends to go shuck off.
Yeah.
She'll probably say that once or twice that weekend.
Put that on the t-shirt. Patent pending.
Anyways,
this is getting-
okay. So last couple things. VIP lounge for all our VIP listeners. As I promised, the next contest is coming up. It's actually starting now as you're watching this. So for the next 2 weeks, here's what I want you to do. The last one was easy. Basically, you just had to be in the VIP lounge to be able to enter. This one, I'm looking at a 1+1 contest, meaning I'm looking for you to bring friends into the VIP lounge. Since you managed to get there, it's probably very easy for you to find somebody else that's already either listened to our show, watched our show on YouTube, that can also join in with it. So it's very simple. Because you're already in, ask one of your friends when they join the VIP lounge over the next 2 weeks to make sure they add your name when they enter. They put the entry code in, and that will give you an entry into the draw. So if you invite 3 friends and all 3 friends join the VIP lounge and put the correct entry code in and then add your name, you get 3 entries. Got it? Now, if you haven't joined the VIP lounge yet,
You need to.
and you need to, because that's where you get all the fun prizes and special
we see
invites
our
and stuff.
crazy outtakes every now
And we get to
then.
do little outtakes and other little videos and stuff
Yes.
that we do every week. My recipe demos that I do from my kitchen. Sometimes it's just my hands because I'm not really dressed for it, but usually it's in there. But those kind of things are on the VIP lounge. So again, to be able to enter the Facebook VIP lounge, you need an entry code, and every month it's going to change. And this month it is. You remember? You don't remember what the entry
No.
code is?
I
You were
heard
just
that
there.
last year.
Beach.
Oh, beach. I didn't see that.
Because she
I thought
just
it was
came from the
mobile.
beach.
I thought
No,
it
that
was
was
last month. Sorry.
We're in February now.
I went away. I went away last month.
Anyway, so
and
all
I
you
came
have to
back
do
and
is
this
go
month.
to the,
I missed
we'll
it.
have the link, of course, in the show notes, or if you just go to our Facebook page and then go onto the feed, you'll see the link for it, and it's going to ask you what the entry code is.
Beach.
If somebody referred you to it, do them a solid and actually put their name as well.
So if
don't
you
forget
had like a
beach.
group of friends that you did a lot of things together, you could enter this as a big group and get like multiple entries.
Sure, the
So
more
if-
people have in the VIP
So if
lounge,
you had
good.
like a bunch of people who you did like the Tough Mudder competition with,
Yes, you could do that.
could you do that with the oyster shucking and call yourselves like the Mudder Shuckers?
You could.
Patent pending.
Okay. I laugh because my brother is also a Tough Mudder guy. So he'd be like, oh,
Nicely
I'm into
done.
that.
He's
I'm
a
into
bad
that.
Mudder Shutter.
He's a bad Mudder Shucker. You would love, he's going to love that too. He will love that. So if you're curious about what the prize is, I'm not going to give you details on it this week. I'll maybe give you a little bit. I can tell you that I went shopping in Quebec City when I was there. And I went into a couple little food and grocery type stores to get a lot of things that were products made just in Quebec. Kind of making a little gift basket of all kinds of little treats or whatever to get you ready for the party and entertaining season that's coming up this spring. So I think the last thing has to do with just rating and subscribe, and you know how to do that now.
Absolutely.
She's learning all her technology week after week.
I hope you're not putting me on the spot because I don't know what to say.
So all you have
next.
to do is rate and subscribe to us on all the podcast players, on our YouTube channel, of course, as well. Make sure if you want to send us any comments or questions, guest suggestions, or any topic or theme suggestions, you can always leave them on any of our social media channels, as well as the YouTube channel. We're always checking them, and then we're planning it out. Next time when Cynthia is here, one of the things that we're going to do is kind of going over our tour schedule for spring and summer. We've already been talking about heading to Prince Edward County in Southern Ontario. We're heading up to Manitoulin Island for sure. And then I don't know if anyone's come with me. I'm going to graze the bench
I'm gonna try.
down at Tony Bench
I might be
this
able
year.
to. Twist my arm. Twist my arm.
I4C for sure, which is the Cool Chardonnay Festival, Cool Climate Chardonnay Festival that happens in Niagara in July. And then I'm dragging the girls camping in tents this summer. Teach you all about cooking over the open fire.
It'll be an
how
intense
to put
experience.
Intense.
how to put a tent. Oh, putting a tent up, what to pack, what not to pack, all that kind of fun stuff. I've been
gonna zip
camping
it.
for most of my life, and so as much as they always thought that I was a little princess, I'm going to show them I can be the bush babe that I know that I am.
I don't know if I can.
And that's how the horror movie started.
I don't know if I can.
From all of us here at Flying for Flavor, to those who like to challenge themselves with competition, or those who just like to watch and cheer everybody else on.
Or have any other questions, feel free to reach out.
Yeah,
My
cheers.
gin's already
Cheers.
gone. but
Cheers, gin's gone.
All good.
I got a lemon wedge.
Thanks so much for watching this video. We love putting it together. It's so much fun. All of our favorite things, good food, good drinks, a lot of travel talk, and we put it all together in one fun show. So make sure you follow us here, click on the videos below, follow, subscribe, and find us on your favorite podcast player. We'll see you on our next trip.